I'm going to go ahead and get us started. I do have us started in somewhat of a gentle inversion. I know we all don't have chairs, so don't stress about it if you don't have it. You're always welcome to start in any type of position that works best for you. So if you want to start seated, shavasana, child's pose, you're always welcome to do those things. They give lots of leeway here in our practice as well. So you'll hear a lot of that. And these guys have been with us for a long time, even before I was here. So, okay, but at this time, I am going to mute everybody. You're welcome to, throughout class, unmute yourself if you have a question or a comment. Otherwise, we'll get into our practice and start reconnecting. So let me do this. Okay, looks good. So let me show you how I have my setup for this opening posture. You'll have to work with what you have. So if you don't have a chair, use your bolster, use a pillow or something that the legs can be rested on. So what I have going is a combination of things. One is a blanket that's in a long rectangular fold. So I just have my throw blanket here. I started out in got it to this like larger rectangular position. Then I took it by the folded edge and I made a quarter fold. So that means I went over about a quarter, back a quarter, and over again. So I have a higher lift and a skinnier, narrower rectangle because I want to do a little bit more for my shoulders tonight. And I'm going to take this support to the top of my mat. The chair, if you're using a chair, I don't think we got chairs tonight, so you're good. You can have pillows here. I'm adding an additional lift underneath the low back. So like a Salamba Setu Bandhasan pose. And I'm going to use my meditation cushion. It's like 4 inches tall. It's soft, but it's firm. You are welcome to forego the support for the sacrum. If you have a yoga block, you can use that as well. So getting into this is a little tricky, especially if you have something in front of you, but if you just have a pillow, you should be fine. If you're going to elevate the sacrum in Salamba Setu Bandhasan, don't have that support there just yet. We're going to go approach bridge pose like we normally would. And I need to slide my blanket down just a tap. So I'm going to sit on the ground, on the mat, figure out kind of where my spine is aligned. I want my blanket to move away from my low back here because this is where I'm going to be placing my cushion. So I'm having a little elevation. I'll come down to the ground first though. So low back is now on the floor. I got to move my little hair class. I went for a jog this afternoon. And now once I'm in this position, feet parallel, a tightening of the buttocks and the backside so that I can squeeze to take my prop under that sacrum. And that prop should be supporting the whole pelvic region, low back region, heaviest portion of our body. Since I'm using a chair, I'm going to use my feet to slide it a little closer towards me. Like I said, if you have a bolster or pillow down there, you'll just bring your legs up over your support. And I'm going to let my feet get up a little bit higher, so I'm in a little bit more elevated position, wherever you are comfortable. Now, once you get into this position, we'll also add our cactus arms, so bending at the elbows and allowing the backs of the hands to flop to the floor. That's going to increase this inversion a little bit more and be a bigger opener across the chest and the shoulder area. So I want you all to just take a moment to figure out where you want to be to start your class, to recenter with the body and the breath. No hurry, make sure you're moving carefully and mindfully. Every part of our practice is a part of our moving meditation. So once we're where we need to be, let's press that pause button here for a moment, close the eyes, start redirecting our attention inward, letting go of where we came from, letting go of any to-do lists we might have, and really allowing ourselves to be present for the next hour and so. Feel an immediate sense of relaxation come over the whole body. Feel that gravitational pull on the body that we've been talking about. Feel that connection and that support from the ground below. Letting go of any tension and tightness in the muscles. Soften those little muscles around the face, poof the cheeks with air, wiggle out the jaw as needed. Feel the weight of the arms. Relax the abdomen. And all the way through the lower half of the body. As we're consciously releasing tension out of our body this evening, we could acknowledge any areas that we might be healing or taking care of this evening as well. Remembering that we practice ahimsa, which is nonviolence, also towards ourselves and our bodies. And we also embrace santosha, or contentment. So wherever we are in our practice this evening, we feel content. Continue to relax the whole body as we now spread our awareness to the rhythm of the breath. We begin by simply observing and watching the body breathe. Notice the subtle movements of the body with the inhalation and exhalation. Try to breathe as smoothly and evenly as possible in and out through the nose. Observe the flow of air around the tip of the nose and the nostrils. And notice a subtle rise and fall of the belly with the breath. Making all these observations without judgment, without labeling any of it good or bad, right or wrong. We're simply acting as a witness from the outside looking in. As we sit with our breath, it naturally grows deeper. It expands in the body. Every inhale is an opportunity to fill ourselves up with fresh air, prana, and energy. And every exhale, an opportunity to let go, exhaling away any stress, worries, tension that we may be carrying around from our day. We'll spend a few more moments here with this breath, and I'm going to share another passage tonight from Catching the Big Fish by David Lynch. He starts off with sharing a passage from the Upanishads. Know that by knowing which everything is known. Life is filled with abstractions, and the only way we make heads or tails of it is through intuition. Intuition is seeing the solution, seeing it, knowing it. It's emotion and intellect going together. Personally, I think intuition can be sharpened and expanded through meditation, diving into the self. There's an ocean of consciousness inside each of us, and it's an ocean of solutions. When you dive into that ocean, that consciousness, you enliven it. You don't dive for specific solutions. You dive to enliven that ocean of consciousness. Then your intuition grows, and you have a way of solving those problems, knowing when it's not quite right, and knowing a way to make it feel correct for you. That capacity grows, and things go much more smoothly. So as we do move and breathe throughout our practice, we use the intuition again to modify, to make those adjustments throughout this evening's class. Let's all follow one more nice deep breath in and out through the nose. And let's try to make this breath our biggest breath of our day yet. That next inhalation, feeling the abdomen expand, feeling the rib cage stretch, all the way up into the brim of the throat. Same thing when we get to our next exhale. Take the time to empty, empty, empty every last drop. Even putting a tiny little bit of effort at the bottom of this exhale. Gentle contraction of the abdominal muscles, drawing the navel towards the spine, cleaning it all up. At the bottom of that exhale, we'll let the breath wander away to wherever it wants to go. Feel the heaviness of the body, the contact points with the body and the floor and any props below it. And then we'll gently start to wake the body up from this position. Start to wake up the toes, the fingertips. Depending where your head is supported, you may be able to do a slight rock of the head side to side. So since we're all in a slightly different position, we're going to have to move out of our pose accordingly. I do want us all to end up back down in a supine position on our mats. So if you have your hips elevated in bridge pose and your legs are over a pillow or extended upwards, walk your feet back in, heels to sit bones. Bring your arms back down by your side for additional support. You'll squeeze the buttock and the hamstrings to lift up just enough to slide that prop out from the low back. And then we'll melt the low back down to the ground. In addition, if you have a folded blanket going up the length of your spine, you may be able to carefully roll off to one side, bending your knees up towards the body, and reach around to slide the blanket out of the way. I'm going to give us another moment for all of us to make that transition. And then we'll all catch up lying on our back. Once we're here, draw the shoulder blades under, step those feet back in, draw the belly in. Let's hug both of our knees in towards the body here and just do a little rock side to side, giving that low back a little bit of a stretch, especially if we were in Satya Bandhasana for a while there. Bring those knees back to center, bring the feet back down to the floor. Re-extend the legs now down the middle of the mat, drawing the legs towards one another. Bring the arms down beside the body, palms down. Adjust the shoulder blades as needed. So we're going to go through some water pump movements. This will connect our movement to the breath and help warm those hips and the body. Take a nice deep breath in, reach the arms up to the ceiling and all the way overhead into our long body stretch. Simultaneously flex your feet here. Pull your toes to your shin bones. On the exhale, point your toes forward and pump your arms back down beside the body. You put a little bit of effort into that squeezing of muscles to the bone. Inhale, arms reach up and overhead. Flex the feet, toes to shin bones. You'll feel your low back arch away from the floor slightly. Exhale, point the toes. Move your arms through thick mud. Draw the lower abdominals into the body. Keep going. Inhaling into a long stretch. Those of us that want to add a little bit more of a stretch for the root of the neck, a little bit more of abdominal work, point the toes, pump the arms on the exhale, float the head up and look towards those toes. On the inhale, head comes down, arms reach over, feet are flexing. Your choice. The exhale is a little bit more strengthening, even though it's soft. If you're lifting the head, drishti to your big toes. And on the inhale, lengthen. Let's do one more of these. We'll meet on our inhale, and then we're going to go right into a flowing Pavana Muktasana. This is a movement for the hip and purposeful compression for the abdomen. Exhale, arms continue to pump, but this time bend the right knee up and in towards the body. You may continue to lift the head. Feet may be flexed or pointed at this point. The inhale re-extends the right leg, arms overhead. Exhale, pump the arms. Use the core to pull the left knee in. Head may lift. Good. Inhale, re-extend. So we're moving from side to side, giving our digestive system, internal organs a little bit of a massage, and just creating this movement with breath to help loosen the joints. Slow, controlled movement. We'll do this one more time to each side. The exhale should be a little bit of compression and squeezing. Good. We should finish with the left side. And again, we'll meet on an inhale with the arm extended and the legs stretched out. Exhale, arms come back down. Step the feet back in, heels to sit bones. If your yoga block is nearby, you may take it on its low setting and place it between your inner thighs. So some of us started in a Salamba Sektibandasana, supported bridge. Now we're going to create movement in this pose. The breath initiates the movement. If you have the yoga block, give it a squeeze. Keep your knees in line with the toes. On the inhale, tighten up the glutes and the hamstrings. Backside does the work. Float those hips up to the ceiling, feeling the stretch of the hip flexors. On the exhale, lower the hips back down to the ground. Drishti is on one spot on the ceiling. Try to add Samavriti pranayama here, our even equal breath. So if you're inhaling, squeezing, and lifting up for a count of 3. On the exhale, you should take the time to lower for a count of 3. And as the front of our body begins to lengthen, that chest can rise. Chest moves towards the chin. Avoid tucking the chin to the chest. So the neck should be in its natural curve off the floor. Keep going at your own rhythm. An additional option here, giving the upper back, the root of the neck, a little massage, add the arms. So the next time you squeeze to inhale, lift up, the arms reach up all the way overhead. Again, that weight should transfer to the meaty part of the shoulders, not the neck. And on the exhale, when we lower the hips, the arms come back down beside the body. Nice controlled movements, everybody. If you have that block, you can squeeze it. If you don't have a block, keep the energy between the inner thighs. You want to avoid the knees falling open. And we're all going to move through one more flowing bridge. On the next exhale, we'll bring the hips down and the arms down. Now keep the knees bent, but this time step the feet as wide as your mat. You might even feel the long edges of your yoga mat running down the centers of the feet. Cactus those arms again from the shoulders. So bend the elbows up from the shoulders. Allow the backs of the hands to fall towards the ground. One or both may not touch, but over time, our friend gravity might help traction the area of our body out. Couple rounds of our windshield wipers. Take a nice deep breath in. On the exhale, let your knees fall off to the right-hand side. They will not be stacked. They'll be like windshield wipers of your car. You'll feel your left side lift up from the floor. Some of us will get a nice big stretch up the front of that quad, hip flexor. Shoulders stay grounded. Now the head can turn the opposite direction. The inhale moves us back up to neutral, knees and head. The exhale will take us to our other side, knees to the left, head turns to the right, whole right side. Big stretch up through the thigh, the hip flexor to the waist. Follow the breath. Inhaling through neutral, exhale. If you're adding that little twist in the head, that will give those muscles across the upper shoulders and around the neck a little release. We can encourage our knees closer to the ground to intensify that stretch. This is a little bit of a back bend, a little bit of a twist. So move one more time to each side. Let your knees fall over to the right one more side, over to the left one more time. The next time, there's no hurry, you'll get there eventually. Your knees are to the right. We're going to press the pause button and hold this pose for several deep breaths. So again, we're just allowing gravity to traction the body out. So we'll all end up with our knees to the right, shoulders grounded, head can be turned to the left. If it is okay on our knee joints, we may self-adjust here by picking up our right foot and placing it on the top of the left thigh. The weight of your right leg will take your left knee closer to the ground, intensifying this arch and the stretch. For me, it's a little bit much, so I'm just gonna let gravity do its job and use my breath to soften into it. Take one more breath on this side. Now, those of you that have the foot on the thigh, before you move, take your right foot back off to the ground. Inhale, the knees and the head back up to neutral. If you feel like you need to do a little adjustment with the low back before we do the other side, do that. Exhale, knees to the left. Keep breathing smoothly in and out through the nose. We're going to hang out here for several deep breaths. One side might not be like the first side, so don't assume your body's going to do the same thing. Shoulders should be relaxed, a little twist in the neck if you want it. Self-adjusting brings the left foot up on top of the right thigh. The weight of that leg will pull your legs closer to the ground, intensifying the stretch and the gentle back bend. One more breath on the side. Those of us that have the self-adjustment, bring the left foot back down to the ground first. Inhale those head and knees back to neutral. Make sure your head is in line with the spine. Step your feet closer together, draw the belly in, hug the knees in. Just a couple more movement here before we transition. Let's take our hands behind our thighs and extend the legs up to the ceiling, waterfall pose. Point and flex the feet a couple times. You may vigorously massage those hamstring muscles back there. Depends if you've been sitting all day like I have, they're still pretty tight even though it's the end of the day. Hold the outer thighs, Supta Konasana. Inhale, legs nice and wide. Use the support of your hands at first just to check in with those inner thigh muscles. We need to be careful when we start stretching the inner thigh growing muscles. Roll those ankles a few times. Low back should stay grounded. Move the hands to the inner thighs if we want to intensify the stretch. Pressing out through the heels to open up the eyes of the knees. And we can give those muscles a little massage. Let's take one more nice big breath in. On the exhale, squeeze the legs back up to vertical. Bend the knees. Draw the knees towards the chest. You may float the head up for a moment to stretch the root of the neck. And then we'll relax the head back down. Bring our right arm beside the head, rolling over into our fetal position, Supta Balasana. Relax the head on the arm, pausing here for a moment. Let that top hand fall to the floor in front of the heart. We can take our heart towards the ground, stretch that top leg forward to help the body come up, and we'll walk ourselves up to a seated position. So we're going to move right into Baddha Konasana. Again, I would prop up those sit bones, especially if you're like me and you have a lot of tightness in the hips and the hamstrings. Most importantly, we want to maintain our posture and have our spine in a neutral position. So I'll be using my meditation cushion again tonight. You can have a firmly folded blanket or your bolster or even yoga blocks. The higher up you go, you might need a little extra support underneath the knees. And I'm going to add those as well. We want to be seated on those sit bones, so move any flesh out of the way as needed. Take your fingertips behind the hips. You can even float the pelvis up. Try to tip the pelvis a little bit more forward, coming into the front of those sit bones. Drawing the soles of the feet together. Engage a little bit through those lower abdominal muscles to help sit up nice and tall here. And then try to bring the 3 points of the feet together. So the mount of the big toes, mount of the pinky toes, and the center of the heels. Once those 3 points are connected, if they connect tonight, flare your toes away from each other. Drawing the heels in only comfortably towards the pubic bone and to where we can maintain our posture. Hands may move to those ankles or feet. Feel the openness through the chest and the heart. Let the shoulders fall away from the ears. Head should just be floating on top of the shoulders. So we'll hold this pose for, again, several deep breaths. We may stay vertical and upright for our bodies tonight. Or on the exhales, we may begin a hinge at the hips. If you are going to start bowing forward into this pose, the spine stays elongated. Keep the same amount of extension through the front of the spine as we have the back of the spine. The inhale, we can pause. Exhale, maybe we have a little bit more space to move into. If you have this space, you're starting to walk your fingertips forward, so maybe you have that flexibility in this pose, you may take another prop out in front of you if the head is close to the ground and use that as support. Continue to draw the low belly in. Try to keep your toes flaring, active contact in the feet. Energetically, you're pulling your thigh bones into the hip sockets. We're not forcing any outside weight on those thigh bones. And we're always moving deeper into the pose, whether that's an outward physical expression or a more inside awareness of where we are in the posture. Keep the mind in the practice. One more breath. Those of you that have moved forward into your pose, on the next inhale, start to bring yourself back out. Take your time, walk the fingertips back, restack the spine all the way up to the crown of the head. Once we come back to a vertical position, take the hands to those outer thighs. Help those feet out wider than the hips. We'll bring weight back into our hands behind the hips. And again, another little windshield wiping movement here to help loosen up the area around the hips. So we're going to do another, I don't know that this will be gradual, Kathy. So those of us that have really tight hips, we're going to have to move very gently and gingerly into this pose. I'm a wonderful example of, especially in this posture, it doesn't matter what you look like on the outside, it's really about what's going on the inside. Because I will look very different than most people in this pose because of my restriction around my hips, but I'm getting a very intense stretch. So this pose is sometimes called double pigeon pose or double log pose. We're going to have to be careful with our knee joints. If this posture ever translates to the knees, any numbness, tingling, pinching, we need to slowly come out of the pose. So I'm going to try to mirror us. We can still be up on our prop. And I want you to have at least 2 yoga blocks nearby or 2 pillows or whatever you have around you. It can be rolled up towels. So to begin this pose, we'll take our right leg and we're going to bring it in front of the body, but we're going to bring the foot over slightly. And this right foot needs to be actively flexed the whole time. So I'm bringing my right heel almost in line with my left sit bone, but I'm not pulling it in. You should have a good 6, maybe even 12 inches from heel to sit bone. We're trying to get our shin bone almost parallel to the edge of our mat. Now, if you do this, you've noticed suddenly your hips have gone out of whack. We need to really work on grounding both of those sit bones equally. So it's going to take some effort. If you're like me and that knee's pretty high up in the air, I'm already going to support it. Here comes the challenge. Flex the left foot. Now, some of us might just end up in a wide open, legs away from us, Sukhasana or cross-legged pose. The goal is to try, without forcing, remember ahimsa, to bring that left ankle, both feet actively flexing, on top of that right thigh bone. Not on the inside of the knee, right at the right thigh bone. Now, this is me. I have 1.5 miles of distance between my knee and my foot. I could take my other yoga block and try to place it in there. That's still not enough. I'm going to just try to breathe through it and let gravity kind of traction me out. Others of you, your knee is going to easily fall towards that foot. So you have a lot of external rotation in your hip. I have not much, let's just put it that way. But this pose is very intense for me. Even though I don't look like I'm fully in it, I'm getting really deep, intense stretch in and around the rotators and hip flexors. So, and like I said, if you get any weird knee stuff, forego the ankle on the thigh. Come into more of a Sukhasana. It might not be as great of a sensation, but you can add a little hinge in the hips to get there. Okay. Those of you feeling this pose like I am, you gotta breathe. You may lean back slightly on the hands, like even here, it's still pretty intense for me, and I've shifted some of my weight backwards. If you're not feeling it yet, like I said, you can hinge forward, keep your feet flexed. Try to take 2 more deep breaths. If you notice that this tension is maybe moving to the jaw, you're always welcome to open the mouth and let out a nice sighing breath to try and get it out. All right, so move out of this pose. I can't wait. I'm going to take a hold of my leg and help my foot up. I'm going to come back to a wide stance in my feet, weight in my hands, and do a little rocking movement, kind of get the blood flowing in the area again. So other side, you all are going to take your left foot, it's actively flexed, toes to the shin bone. You're going to bring that heel almost in line with the sit bone, maybe a little further over, and let the heel be forward so that the shin bone is almost parallel. For some of you, it will be the front edge of your mat. Take your support under the knee as needed. Equally weight your sit bones. If you've noticed you started favoring one over the other, you either need to give yourself more lift under the sit bones or readjust the leg. Flex the right foot. Externally rotate. You may try to bring, I might not even be able to even try it on this side. We don't want this foot sickling. The flexed foot protects our knee joints. And I'm already discovered that that's not going to work for me tonight, so I'm going to make a mental note of that and not do that on my first side next time I do this pose. And I'm going to choose the Sukhasana version. I'm in this weird cross-legged, active feet in front of me. Okay, good. So those of you that are there, you may sit back, weight in the hands to alleviate some of that stretch and pressure on the hips. If you want more, you may hinge forward in the hips. You should be feeling that in that left, or sorry, your right hip. I'm mirroring you, so your right hip. Try to use that exhale. This can be quite an intense posture for a lot of us. Keep the face soft. Two more breaths. At any time, open mouth exhale is appropriate, especially when we notice that some of this tension is moving to other parts of the body. All right, I know, sometimes you gotta get out of that pose faster. So as we come out after our last breath, careful, try to place the foot down, open the feet back out nice and wide, hands behind those hips, rock them out. All right, we're gonna make a big transition now So however you want to get there, you can walk your feet around to one side. We're going to move into tabletop on all fours. Fingers are spread wide. Hands are as broad as the shoulders. Press into the ground. Knees should be stacked right underneath the hips. Toes may be flexed or pointed. Draw that low belly in. The spine is in neutral. Head is floating in line with the spine. Let's get a little bit more movement back into our hips and back. We'll float through a couple rounds of Asana or cat-cows. The breath is the guide. On the inhale, relax the abdomen. Create that expansion through the spine, vertebra by vertebra, lifting up from the tip of the tailbone, crown of the head. Exhale, draws the belly in. Scoop the tail under. Draw the chin towards the chest, drishti to the belly button. Really open up the back of the heart between the shoulder blades, especially if you have a lot of tension there. Move your breath like a wave all the way up and down the spine. If you find that one of these postures feels quite nice for the back, for the body, you may hang out there for a few extra breaths. Add little lateral movements, hip to shoulder, little movements in the neck. It's really about just kind of creating flexibility through the whole upper half of our body. Let's balance ourselves out. And another stretch for the low back and those hips, Balasana. So point the toes, open those knees wider than the hips. Draw the belly in, draw those hip bones back to the heels. Now those of us that are not able to sit back to the heels tonight, keep your hips elevated. You may rest down on your forearms. You may also place props behind you to sit on, especially if that's a little too much compression in the knees. Active Balasana extends the fingertips forward to the front corners of the mat. And then we may sink the heart and the head towards the ground. So this is another pose that can really help release neck and shoulder issues, especially if we can get our heart closer towards the ground. The head must be supported. So if the forehead isn't touching the ground, stack your fists or prop under the forehead. Feel that elongation through those side bodies, the rib cage, the shoulders. Big stretch for our lumbar area of our low back and around the hips. Let's take one more breath in the pose. Next inhale floats the head and the body up. We'll come back to our tabletop position. Stack the knees under the hips. Nice strong arms. Tucking the toes under. Let's walk our hands about 1 hand's distance forward. The arms are more at an angle. Draw the low belly in. Pressing into the ground, we're going to float our hips up, back, shifting the weight down. Adho Mukha Svanasana, downward facing dog. So a partial inversion here. Allowing the head to float between those upper arm bones. This can be another pose to help release tension in the neck and shoulders. Even though it strengthens the area around our shoulder girdle, if we can learn to shift the weight down the backs of the legs, remember that force of gravity anchoring us from our waist down. So bend the knees more deeply if our low back needs a little bit more of a release. Root down through the mounds of the index fingers and thumbs. We have internal rotation in the forearms, but there's external rotation in the upper arm bones. So you want to roll those upper arm bones away from the ears. Draw your shoulder blades down the back towards the hips so that the neck is long and loose. Draw the belly in, belly towards thighs. Doesn't matter if your heels touch the ground or not. We're going to take the dog for a walk to intensify the stretch up the backs of the legs. So on the inhale, lift your heels up as high as you can. Look at your feet. We're trying to get our feet asymmetrical to each other. Look at the crease across your toes. Exhale, sink right heel to ground, bend left knee. Inhale, heels up, nice and tall. Stretch the feet. Exhale, switch. Left heel down, bend right knee. Now you can walk your dog as slowly or quickly as you like, but take the time to get the eyes of those knees to open. The more we can stretch up the backs of the legs, our calves, our hamstrings, the more, that will benefit our low backs and our spinal health. Now let's cultivate some stillness in our pose. Press that pause button. Simply absorb the pose. Take 1 or 2 more deep breaths. On the inhale, we'll look forward. We will baby step our feet to our hands to our feet. You are welcome to stay in Uttanasana, an intense stretch, forward fold. To modify, especially if you have any low back issues tonight, bend the knees. Place your elbows on your thighs or even your hands. You're always welcome to come up to Tadasana and work on your posture there. Uttanasana, feet parallel, strongly grounded. Take a hold of opposite elbows if you'd like to ragdoll the upper body. Loosening the head, giving it a little happy nod. Yes, I'm so happy I made the time to be here this evening. A gentle shake, no. I don't need to hold on to anything from the day that doesn't serve me. Feet are strong, legs are strong, quads are lifting. Start thinking about those lower bandhas, Mula Bandha in the pelvic floor, Uddiyana Bandha in the lower abdominal muscles. 1 more breath. Now let's all bend our knees slightly. Walk our hands onto our thighs with the fingertips turned inward. Tuck the chin to the chest, Jalandhara Bandha. And inhale, press the feet into the ground. Round up. We're articulating to the spine, so you should feel movement 1 vertebra at a time. Make sure you're breathing in to come out of that inversion. Head should be the very last thing that comes up. When you come upright, give your shoulders a purposeful shrug to your ears, purposeful tension. Then exhale, let the shoulders fall away. Float the arms out beside the body slightly, traditional Tadasana. Foundation in the feet should still be parallel. Pick up those toes, ground through the energetic 4 points of each foot. Unlock those knees. Shin slightly forward, draw the thigh bones back. Front body to back body, lengthening that upper buttock down towards the ground. Openness through the chest and heart. No tension in the face or the neck. Head is light on the shoulders. Let's turn those palms out. Remember our wide wingspan. Inhale. Reach out to the sides of the room, all the way up to the ceiling. Big stretch through the body. Exhale, palms touch. Lower the hands to the heart. Right into our warming balancing pose, palm tree pose. Fix the drishti on one spot. Inhale. Big circle. This time as we reach out and up, the heels come up. Exhale, try to slowly lower back down. 2 more times, follow your breath. Remembering from the waist down, we're anchored strong like roots of a tree with gravity. So from the waist up, we can lengthen and extend towards the sky. 1 more. Next, exhale when the heels lower down and the hands come back to the heart. That's where we'll meet. And then we come out of our pose just for a moment. So we're just going to do 1 more standing pose tonight and 1 more balancing pose. Prasarita Padottanasana. So we'll probably need to move ourselves on our yoga mats to face the long edge, or just be in a stance where you're safe and your feet are secure. If you have yoga blocks and 2 of them, grab those, or if you want to use a seat of a chair or a couple books. Make your movements mindful. Props will be set up about shoulder width apart towards the long edge of the yoga mat. Draw those fingertips together at the center of the heart. Inhale, nice big step out. It might take us a couple steps to get there. And our neutral position. So our feet should be as wide as our wrists, or close to it. So this is a fairly wide stance. 4 corners of both feet anchored. So we want to avoid rolling in or out to the inner or outer edge of our feet. Take a nice deep breath in. Exhale, bring the hands onto the rim of the hips. All the movement comes in the pelvic bowl, pouring forward. Draw the belly in. You may open the heart slightly by pulling the elbows back here. Lift those quads up. On the exhale, pour the pelvis. Now maybe we just move 10, 15 degrees at first into the pose. And also your toes can turn in slightly. So I forgot to cue that. So turning your toes in slightly, little pigeon toed is going to internally rotate your thigh bones and make it a little bit easier for that pelvis to pour forward. Now keep the strength in the upper back, the strength in the legs and the core. Drishti can be right underneath the tip of the nose or slightly forward if that helps keep your spine long. Next exhale, if those props are in reaching distance, you can place your fingertips on them. Try not to place the whole hand and shift all your weight through the arms into the hands. We want to keep our strength in the lower half of the body. Every inhale, we can create some space. And on the exhale, maybe we have the opportunity to move into that space. Remembering we should always be going deeper, whether that's an outward physical approach or an internal approach. Those of you that are moving physically further into the posture, this will turn into another inversion. You may bring your fingertips to the floor. You may walk your hands between the feet, aligning the tips of the fingertips with the tips of the toes. Eventually, elbows may bend straight back like the legs of the bird. You may continue to keep your drishti underneath the tip of the nose to the floor, purposefully pooling blood at the base of the skull. Or at this point, you may release the head to the ground, especially if you have neck tightness and you want to let it go. But try to keep your shoulders engaged. So we're trying to let the neck release by supporting the shoulders. So still drawing the shoulder blades together and down the back towards the hips, but allowing the root of the neck and the weight of the head to softly release to the ground. Strong core, strong feet, couple more deep breaths. Our next inhale, take your time. It starts to initiate the movement. We want to come to about a halfway lift. So walk the fingertips forward. Restack your props as you're using them. Little micro bend in the knees, strong core. Exhale, one hand at a time back to those hips. And then inhale, breathing lifts the crown of the head back up. Try to inhale even more air, reaching the arms out and up. Big breath. Bring the palms to touch. Exhale, hands to heart. Let's heel toe or simply step the feet together. So we're going to cultivate a little bit of stillness in our pose tonight. We'll go back to our Vrikshasana. If you need to move things out of your space, then take a moment to do so. Try to bring the insides of the feet and legs as close together as possible. Compact the hips, moving the body to our midline. Just like a tree, we're going to anchor from the waist down, that L5 area, into the ground with gravity so that the rest of the spine can lengthen up towards the ceiling. Lift the right heel from the floor. At the hip, we're letting the knee open outward. Your hips and pelvis should remain level. So if you've dropped into one hip, you need to bring those back into position. Shoulders falling away from the ears, face completely relaxed, drishti on one spot. So we've been trying to add a little bit of change in our balancing pose. So if we always place the foot to the lower calf, you may try to bring the foot to the inner thigh. If you always bring the inner foot to inner thigh, bring the foot down. If you always lift the foot from the floor, maybe softly have a big toe touching. Just try to do something slightly different. Even if it makes our tree fall over, that's okay. That's the point. Same thing with the drishti. If we always look towards the floor, try to bring your drishti to the horizon, even upwards towards the sky. Even more of a challenge, the Sagar drishti to the tip of the nose, and then eventually closing the eyes completely. Just try something different. Good. One more breath. We'll try our slow release. Point the knee forward. Inhale, extend out through the foot. Exhale, lowers the foot. Pause, Namaste, standing stillness. If you notice a big shift when the other foot comes down, just put a little bit more effort into keeping those hips level on the next side. Let's take a breath. Inhale. So find that length and extension through the upper half of the body here. Keep it. Exhale, hands to center. Left heel lifts. At the hip, it opens. Trying to be as symmetrical as possible from our first side to our second side. But if it doesn't happen because of any reason, don't force it. A little different position in our Vrikshasana. Level the hips. Draw up through those lower bandhas to help with the balance. Good. Even more of a challenge. I know this is a pose we could probably stand for an hour in normally, but that little shift, that little bit of change in the body, in the pose, in the asana, and in the drishti. Relax the face. Good. I like seeing these trees get a little movement this evening. One more breath. If those eyes are closed, you can blink them back open. Point the knee forward. Inhale, extend out through the foot. Exhale, foot comes down. Samasthiti, pause. Avoid any unnecessary fidgeting and movement. Inhale, draw a big circle. Find that wingspan out to the sides of the room, all the way overhead. Drishti to the thumbs, a little bit of extension. Exhale, hands to heart. All right, it's time to make another bigger transition. So we'll move ourselves around on our mats if we need to come back to the top of our mat. Start with your feet hips width apart. Bring your arms back down beside the body into Tadasana. Float the ears over the shoulders, shoulders over the hips. Anchor the four corners of the feet to the ground, front body to back body. Let the heart be open. Let the head just float on the shoulders. Inhale, reach out and up. Again, gentle back bend, drishti with thumbs if you want it. Exhale, micro bend the knees. Hinge from the hips. We're going to swan dive, drawing the arms back, down, and around into our version of Uttanasana. Let's hang out here for a little pause to release the neck and shoulders again. Prance the legs for a little bit deeper stretch up the backs of the legs. Inhale, Ardha Uttanasana, halfway lift, hands to shins, squeeze the upper back, gaze slightly forward. Good. Exhale, bends the knees, plants the hands. We'll take a big step back into Adho Mukha Svanasana, downward facing dog. And pause here for a couple breaths. Try to mentally go through all our alignment principles through the hands, the arms, the shoulder blades, the belly, the hips, the knees, down to the ankles and feet. Inhale, heels up, find the creases of those toes. Exhale, drop down to the knees, point the toes. If it's an option, we'll sit back in our more traditional balasana, keeping the knees together, bowing the head to the ground, and bringing the hands all the way back to the feet, allowing the weight of the arms to flop towards the ground, allowing the upper half of the body to drape over the lower half of the body. Take a breath. Hands under the shoulders, tuck the chin. Inhale, again, articulate through the spine. We're rounding up to sit back in a variation of Vajrasana or transition, however works best for those knees. Once we sit upright, shift your weight over to either hip, it doesn't matter, and bring the feet forward. So it's already time to come back down to the ground. I want to give us some time to be in a final relaxation pose. One thing I'll option is our restorative, again, Salamba Setu Bandhasana or supported bridge pose. So if you're going to go that route, have your props ready beside you. Walk yourself down safely or face forward. Bring the soles of the feet to touch. Knees open wide. Pull the belly in. Reaching fingertips forward and trying to roll through the spine, one vertebra at a time. Once we come down to the ground, move any hair clips out of the way. Extend the legs down the middle of the mat, arms overhead, long body stretch. On the exhale, arms can come down, shift the shoulder blades. So before we move into final relaxation, I'm going to give you just another minute here if you feel like you need to visit any other posture before we pause. So that might be a spinal twist, knees for a breath or two to each side. It might be a happy baby. Maybe we want to take our legs back up into a vertical position. Whatever you feel like your body might need before you rest for a moment. If you're doing asymmetrical movements, give yourself time to balance yourself out from one side to the next. So the next pose we're going to put ourselves in is the one that we're going to pause in for several moments. It may be Shavasana, allowing the whole body to stay in contact with the floor, feet wide, flopping open, arms rolling open beside the body, palms up, back center of the skull, grounded. If you'd like to take that supported bridge pose, we'd walk our feet in, we'd squeeze the back side to lift our hips up, sliding that support again right underneath the sacrum, lower half of the back. Shoulders should be supporting the body. Again, arms may roll open, palms up. Cactusing the arms will be a little bit more hard opening. And at this point, you may take Purana Setu Bandhasan, full bridge, by extending the legs forward on the mat. I would encourage you to keep your feet more active in that pose or take additional support underneath the knees. It might be a little awkward to get there, but you can work with your yoga blocks and your feet to support the knees so the knees don't hyperextend. Once we're in our pose, we'll once again press that pause button. Close the eyes, let the eyes sink into the sockets. Poof the cheeks with air. Wiggle out the mouth, tongue, and jaw. Make any other adjustments you might need to in the beginning so that we can cultivate stillness here in the end. Letting go of controlling the body. Letting go of controlling the breath. Soften and relax the whole body. Soften and relax the inside of the body. Notice a subtle rise and fall of the belly with the breath. That breath becomes easy, quiet, and calm. If the mind wanders, gently bring it back to the peaceful breath. Giving ourselves permission to take a moment of this day to let go, to feel a sense of surrender, and to simply be and breathe. At this point, you may choose to stay where you are, or we will start to breathe some life back into the body. If you're transitioning from supported bridge pose, carefully wake up toes, fingers, tips. Walk the feet one at a time back towards the sit bones. Bring the arms back down beside the body. Squeezing the buttocks and the back of the body, pressing into the feet and the backs of the arms, and lifting up just enough to slide our prop out from underneath the low back. Let the low back sink to the ground. Pause for a moment. Rock the knees side to side. Gently draw the knees up towards the body, hugging the knees in to massage the back. Float the nose towards the knees to give the upper back, root of the neck, a little bit of a stretch. Then we'll relax the head back down, bring one arm beside the head, roll onto our side and Supta Balasana, our fetal position, and pause there for a moment. Now try to keep the eyes soft or closed. We'll probably need to open our eyes a little bit anyway to make this transition. But press into the ground, we'll bring our body into a seated position. Sit up on support for those sit bones as needed so that we can keep our spine tall and erect. You may take Sukhasana, Siddhasana. If you practice Padmasana or Ardha Padmasana, you're more than welcome to bring those into your seated posture. So for this evening, I'm going to do the Om Purnamada mantra. Those of you that have practiced it just a little bit with me, you can look at your mantra sheet if you have it nearby and follow along. At the very end of class tonight, if you want to stay after, we'll do our call and response. Sit up tall, taking Chin Mudra in the hands, index finger to thumbs, placing the hands on the knees, palms up or palms down. If you're not familiar with this mantra, you can just simply sit and follow along. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Mudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. We'll go right into our pranayama, so I'll guide us through a couple rounds of Nadi Shodhanam. We'll practice a few more rounds at our own pace. Sit for a moment when we're finished, and then we'll conclude our class at that point. Readjust the posture as needed. Sit up tall through the crown of the head. In the right hand, we take Nasagra Mudra, which starts with the peace symbol, then bring the index finger and middle fingers to touch. Turn the right hand to face the face and place your thumb on the outside of the right nostril and the ring and pinky on the outside of the left nostril. The middle and index fingers press into the third eye center. To begin, we inhale through both nostrils. And exhale back out through both nostrils. Close the right nostril with the thumb and inhale left. Close the left, open the right, and exhale. Inhale back through the right. Close right, open left, exhale. That's one round. Inhale left. Close left, open right, exhale. Inhale back through the right. Close right, open left, exhale. That's 2 rounds. Continue at your own rhythm and pace. Be very mindful of the posture. Sit up tall. If one side is more congested than the other, just do your best to breathe through it. Try to maintain Samavritti pranayama, so an equal count from the inhales to the exhales. If the right arm gets tired, place the left palm underneath the right elbow to help prop the arm and the head up.